I was just able to sit down with Lisa Giocondi, who's in leadership at the Mayo Clinic here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and just a really fun journey. She's had quite a journey and a lot of pivots in her career, but she goes into really good information to share with anyone that's kind of on the fence about what to do with your healthcare career, what people do in their healthcare career, and some really, really fun takeaways, very bold ideas around nursing and how we can solve some of those challenges. So I hope you enjoy my time with her. I'm Stephanie, a mother, a pilot. No, am I trying to say the same thing? Or just talk? Welcome to the Wisdom and Wealth podcast, where the stories you don't hear are the ones that matter most. I'm Stephanie, a mother, pilot, and commercial real estate professional with deep roots in Arizona. I was an entrepreneur at 24 and sold my first business at 27, and I've been navigating commercial real estate ever since. We are going to be sitting down with some of the biggest names in business around the Phoenix metropolitan area, as well as community leaders and nonprofit organizations that are continuing to improve our community. I'm very excited for the things that they chose to share when they thought nobody was listening. What I've learned in hearing their stories aren't just the struggles and how we overcome them, but really building a network around you of people that know you, trust you, want to help you, and you are trying to give just as much to them as they give to you every single day. And never connecting that relationship to a transaction. It's about the relationships, the connections, and understanding the true stories that shape success. And I hope you find inspiration in the conversations we have. Okay, tell me, I want to dive right in. Okay, so take me back to little Lisa. Little Lisa, why is little Lisa in healthcare in the first place?
Little Lisa originally was a nurse major way back when. That's what my first degree was towards. I went into nursing because it was going to be a good field for a woman. That's what my dad said. But he set me up for success. I was an ROTC all through high school. And then my plan was to be an ROTC in college and then go into nursing and also enlist and have 4 years, or actually 8 years, that would have been an ROTC under my belt. So I would have gone in at a higher rank.
Okay.
So it was a great plan that my dad set me up for. And I loved ROTC. But then I started working at the television station at college and fell in love with
And what
it.
state are we in? What college, what state? Where we
At
live in?
IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, And freshman year, started working at the television station and fell in love with it. And everyone's like, Cheryl, you need to do this. So I dropped out of the nursing program, much to my parents' dismay, because it was hard to get into, and decided to go to broadcast journalism. But not only was I going into broadcast journalism, I couldn't just go to a small school for broadcast journalism. I needed to go somewhere big like Penn State that had a really great program. So that's what I did.
Okay, so go to Penn State. We're in broadcast journalism. How long do we do this?
I did broadcast journalism for under 2 years because I soon realized that I was making $16,000 a year, working 80-hour work weeks, and it's just like they show you on TV. So it's very cutthroat. And I was like, I thought this was going to be fun. I'm not really willing to do all of the things that I would have to do and move multiple times because I met my late husband and was in love and wanted to get married. So then I'm like, what do I do with this super useful communications degree? With also psychology and sociology. I was smart enough to get those two useful degrees as well. So what do I do with these two degrees? Decided that I could teach. So that's when I enrolled to go back to school. In Pennsylvania, I would have had to gone back to school, but South Carolina was a critical needs state, and they would employ you and then wait for you to take all of your boards and pass them. So that's what I did. I moved to South Carolina, started working as a teacher, passed my boards, and then I was an English language arts teacher. I also taught public speaking, journalism. So that's what I did.
I'm trying to get you back into healthcare. How the heck do we get back to healthcare?
I had my daughter, Vanessa, and I was working every day and paying my babysitter half. I was splitting my paycheck in the half with her. And she would leave and be like, thanks for letting me play with your baby. And I had lesson plans to write and term papers to grade, parents to call. And I'm like, this sucks. And I had two friends that were nurses, and they were like, we go to work 3 days a week. And when we're die, this is how much we make. And I'm like, holy cow, what was I thinking? This is perfect for a mom. And so I went back to school.
Dang it, when dad's right.
I went to nursing school Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I taught at the Christian school part-time Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then waitressed Friday and Saturday nights to pay for my nursing school.
Oh my goodness.
So
Worth
that's
it?
right. Yes, I think so.
Okay, then so what brings you, tell us the story of the journey to Arizona.
Journey to Arizona. That's very convoluted. So I worked as I originally got out of school, went into being a level 1 trauma ICU nurse, brand new nurse. Would not recommend doing that, but literally it was like jumping into the fire. I worked night weekends because that's my husband and I traded off with childcare. So I never had to put the girls in daycare. Worked night weekends, which there's a lot of autonomy. It's really just you and the other nurses. So it's like MASH, especially I was working in a level 1 trauma hospital that was in rural South Carolina. So we got everything. Did that for a while until the girls got into school and then switched to day shift, still did the ICU, and then was escalated up through charge nurse and then supervisor and all of that. And then was approached to see if I wanted a management job, which was completely outside of the ICU, something I knew nothing about, which was inpatient rehab. I knew nothing about rehab. However, our hospital had a small kind of what Care South is, or one of those rehab hospitals. There, one of our competitors was in town, and all of our physicians were sending the patients to the competitor and not to our little rehab hospital. So the reason was why they didn't trust the nursing care that the patients got there. They thought they got better nursing care somewhere else. So working in the hospital for years and in the ICU, I knew almost every doctor at that hospital. They trusted me. They knew who I was. So it was very strategic for leadership to move me to that role. I'm like, I know nothing about rehab. They're like, we don't care. We want you to get the nursing staff in shape. And we know that the physicians, if you're over something, that it's going to be good. So that started my leadership journey. And then I was nurse manager and then promoted up to program manager, which was the best experience I've ever had in my life because although this was only a 42-bed hospital, so really small, I acted like a mini CEO of this hospital. I learned everything, but a very small, tiny little safe environment. So
Yeah, a little microclimate.
to do with billing and finances and marketing and market shares and construction and permits, and you name it, I did it all. So it was it was a great learning experience for me. But I knew that if I wanted to expand my career, that working in a little 42-bed hospital was not going to do it. And at this time, it was very apparent to me that I was going to have to be the breadwinner of my house because my husband was no longer working and no longer able to work. So that's when I went back and I got my MBA. That was very strategic on my part because most nurses get their MSN, which is their Master in Science of Nursing, or their MHA. But I chose to get my MBA because my thought process was at the end of the day, if I even ever want to get out of healthcare, an MBA is the most useful degree you can ever have. So it's business.
I wonder too, in their journey, you accidentally got a taste of the business side of it, running the 42-bed hospital. Did you love it? Is that what kind of started that?
Yes.
So now you
small scale, it's very different when you work for a large corporation, which I'm learning. You don't have that autonomy to do all of those decisions and make the impact that I once did. So.
You're part of a bigger machine. It's hard. As myself, I was an entrepreneur and then I went into, over the course of my career, 3 different corporations. And you're either made for it or it's challenging. It's just a totally different environment. It's a lot more navigating than it is problem solving necessarily. It's navigating what's best for the bunch, right? The bigger conversation.
It's a lot of hoop jumping too. So where I like to get just strategically go right to where we need to be. You just got to navigate all the hoops and the politics and all of that.
So you bring the East Coast small business, got a taste of the business. Now we have an education in the business side. You've got the nursing exposure. You've got the leadership exposure. What was it like first coming into Mayo?
It was, in a way, I was a fangirl. Like I came out of COVID and healthcare working for the largest for-profit hospital industry in the United States, very cutthroat. And I was jaded. I was working like 70 hours a week. I was burned out. I was done. And to come somewhere like Mayo where they actually do care about the patients and care about you and your well-being, it's not perfect. Believe me, it's not perfect. But when I have physicians or other providers, employees that complain about X, Y, or Z at Mayo, my question to them is, have you ever worked anywhere else? Because if that answer is no, you don't have an opinion because you have no idea what it's like to
Perspective.
work. Yeah, it's no idea what it's like to work in the trenches during COVID when you have nothing, nothing. And that would, yeah, Mayo had their struggles during COVID from what I hear, but it did not operate like the other hospitals. Like it, so it was just really nice to come someplace where you felt like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like.
How many years ago was that you started at
That was
Mayo?
3 years. Yeah, I've
Okay,
been here
so
3 years.
and so do you, man, I must have met you right when you got here.
You did.
Wow, I didn't realize that. So when so as in your 3-year tenure at Mayo, what have you, because we from a landscape perspective, we've seen a lot change, right? They've sat on this huge campus with a smaller building with a, when you see the master plan, it looks small. It's not really
Right.
small. But and then now we're seeing dirt move, now we're seeing partnerships formed. Like what have you seen in just 3 years as far as
In
change
3 years,
goes?
I definitely see the Mayo as a business.
Hmm.
And you know what? Healthcare is evolving. It's no longer going to be companies run by physicians and providers. We're becoming a
Mhm.
tech company. All healthcare is. That's the way it's going. So hospitals can either embrace that or they're going to falter. Because if you continue, yes, clinicians know medicine, and yes, we're a company that does medicine and does it well. But at the end of the day, healthcare is evolving into tech companies. It is the newest tech evolution that there is. So it's really, I'm seeing it become a business. It's an entity. Right now I'm working, so I also coach, I do leadership coaching too. And I've been coaching some of our strategists. So I'm Mayo Clinic's young strategist and just learning about the whole strategy and all of that, how Mayo really is. Because in order to survive and be successful and move forward, because right now hospitals are closing left and right, especially with the
Mhm.
big, beautiful bill coming through. Hospitals always were operating in the red, most of them,
Mhm.
unless you're a big entity like the Mayo or the MD Andersons or even
Mhm.
Kaiser Permanente is struggling right now. But unless you really have that cushion, most hospitals are operating in the red. So when you have these cuts come through, they cannot survive. So that's when you have to
Mhm.
reinvent. Okay, everything we thought about healthcare and the business of healthcare has to change if we want to have a successful model moving forward.
And once upon a time, I worked for a for-profit hospital, and at the time, it was really only Mayo and our hospital that came from a little bit more of that mindset. It's always patient first, period. There's nobody that doesn't do patient first, but
Right.
just more of that. We have to make it this sustainable. We have to keep the lights
Right.
on and the doors open to
Right.
take care of the next patient, the next generation of patients. So I think that at the time we were not highly regarded by the physician community because of it. It was just no, you just do. You got to
Right.
be able to afford to do right to
And you want to be
not.
able to afford research. If it wasn't for research, we'd still be back in the 1930s. So we need research to move
Mhm.
forward, which was one of the reasons that when I sought out treatment for my husband's care, I actually sought out Mayo's because the research they were doing with that particular cancer. So research takes so much money. There's people that work for Mayo that you would like proton physicists and all of these engineers, data engineers. There all these people that go into this research and for putting the patient first, yes, but it's more than just band-aids and medicine.
So when you being at the front line of this, and now you're coaching the young minds at the front line of the tech piece of it, what part of it terrifies you and what part of it excites you?
The part that terrifies me is definitely the consumerizing of it. And like I said, in order to sustain, hospitals are going to become competitive. They're going to start competing with each other. So what does that look like? Are we going to be selling a brand? I hope that healthcare, I've already seen it in some other markets. Like when you have, say, different markets, say an orthopedic group competing against an orthopedic group, just that sensationalizing and branding, because that at the end of the day, it's not really about your bottom line and the patient. It's more about
Mhm.
selling, just like McDonald's sells. They're in the business of selling hamburgers, or we in the business of selling knee replacement. I don't see
Let's
that.
be real. McDonald's is in the business of real estate. They just happen to sell burgers. But to
Oh,
your point,
or they're in the business of making us sick. So let's go there too. But
digress.
healthcare, I think a lot of people, when I hear AI, people tend to get scared like, oh, we're going to lose our jobs. Nurses and doctors are never going to lose their jobs because I feel, and I've seen this firsthand, I've actually done talks on this with AI. that as the hospital becomes more techy, at the end of the day, people still want that hand to hold. They still want, we saw this with COVID. We heard these stories where patients said that when the nurses came in garbed up, they couldn't even see what they looked like. They couldn't hear them. It was almost like they felt like they were abducted by aliens, like those old stories you hear where someone's abducted by an alien and put on a table and experimented on. And that's the way they felt. So people want, when they're scared, when they're frightened, when they're vulnerable, they don't want a robot coming in their room and drawing their blood. They
Yeah.
want that human interaction. And we're already showing that, yes, AI does great things. It can do things like detect, read scans before it even gets to the radiologist. But at the end of the day, it can't decipher. It can't. I have had surgeons tell me that they don't even prefer laparoscopic because they learn so much about that person's body when they get in there and they touch the tumor and they see everything. So AI is not going to do away with humans. But
I love that you're
humans
saying,
learn how to utilize it. It's not what people think it is. It's not the end all be all. It is a tool that you need to learn how to utilize.
I always say it's like, it's a great first step. And that's what I've seen. And I don't save lives for a living, but it's a great first step that if you can use it to automate something, make it faster, but there's got to be that quality assurance, right? There's got to be that human behind it goes, oh, it misunderstood me or misunderstood the situation because there's the human component. And I was recently hearing there's a study, I think it might be at Helios, I'm not sure, but they're studying the impacts of people working with a coworker that is a robot. And they did something along the lines of they made one of the functions in this workspace shaped like a dog, and it did whatever task it does for whatever their function is. And after weeks of working with this robot dog, they told people go kick the robot dog, like just to see what your psychological impact was. And people wouldn't kick the robot dog. Like it's just a
Wow.
machine, but it feels.
Yeah. A person. Yeah.
To your point, like, I can't wait to see what we find out as far as like the psychological effects. But we just think about that as ourselves, that patient. We got to firsthand look at it through COVID. If you don't have that hand touching you, that hug, it
That
what's the
interaction.
point? What about it excites you? What do you think is going to be really a huge win?
I think the tools with AI are really going to help us make gains in some of these diseases that we've just had roadblocks to. I hear people say, oh, there's a cure for cancer. So if you take a cancer cell that's rectal cancer versus a cancer cell that's breast cancer, they're very different cancers. So yes, they're both cancers, but I don't see something coming across like a big blanket of curing cancer. But maybe in some of these diseases like MS, ALS, some of these neurological disorders,
Mhm.
um, definitely seeing some breakthrough.
Where do you think it'll happen first as far as geography goes for the United States? Do you think it'll pop like Johns Hopkins? Will Mayo be first to market? Like where will
Johns
it?
Hopkins is the one great thing that I love about Mayo, and I found this out with the Duke as well, is when you are involved in a research study, when you're a patient involved in a research study, they share. Hospitals are not, and that's what I never want to happen. I never want them to become like some of big pharma that are going to hold on to their data and keep it, because hospitals will share their information because they want to say, hey, we tried this clinical trial with this cocktail of chemotherapies and genomics and all of this, and this really worked with this cancer. And then they share it. Why? Because they want other hospitals to try out their theory as well. So if I'm at Mayo, I want the doctor at Johns Hopkins to try this out and say, oh, hey, we started doing it this way. What are you seeing? Because physicians at the end of the day get into that because they want to help patients. They don't want to monopolize on a product.
And then I get the Hippocratic Oath and I understand, and but to your point of if this does turn to business and there is that competitive edge and there is that brand, does that sharing environment remain?
I would say yes, because not everybody can do everything well. And I even say that, yes, come to Mayo, you will get amazing care no matter what you're getting. But there are other industries that are very specialized in certain things. So
Mhm.
not every hospital is going to do absolutely everything. Just like our Mayo doesn't do pediatrics. We don't do labor and delivery. It's just something that they've decided, hey, that's not what we want to focus
Not
on.
us.
And so what I'm going to see is the corporations like Mayo, MD Anderson, John Hopkins, Sloan Kettering's, you're going to have those that are going to take your complex patients, your sickest of the sick. those patients that, the average community hospital just does not have the resources to do.
Mhm.
So then those patients can go to a higher tier up.
So it just dawned on me right now. I'm doing the math in my head. Are you now seeing rotations with docs that did their residency through COVID? Is that kind of the timeline that we're at, that the COVID residents are now physicians?
Yes. Yeah.
What is that like? Do you see a difference?
Yes and no. I would say everybody as a whole, like right after COVID was so interesting because all the healthcare people were heroes. And then it was
Hmm.
like just like a flip of a switch, they were demonized.
Yep.
And so many people, like after COVID, I remember I had friends in the neighborhood that were complaining because they were having to work from home or having all this free time. And I was working 70 hours a week and dead. And I'm like, oh, so nice for you. I haven't seen my family in an
Yeah.
entire week. And
And
then it was
nurses,
like,
their faces just went pale in that period of time. There was no like life left. It was like gives me chills just even remembering faces.
and then after COVID died, quote unquote, died down, it was right back to business as usual. Oh, what are your numbers? What's your product? What are your QI metrics? And it was like, oh my gosh, when I get that we work for healthcare, but that I think was the hardest on the workers, if not harder than actually COVID, was that we it was like, oh, thank you so much for basically giving us your soul to save COVID. But now right back in the get right back at it, no breathing, no, just jump right back in. And that was hard. That was really hard. There was people, they were just exhausted and they were done.
Yeah,
So
you can
so
see
many
it.
people retired. We lost a lot of staff or staff that went away from the bedside after COVID.
But there were jokes. I remember the running jokes because the younger med students or residents, they were doing IVs on bananas and practicing different things. They were like, don't get a doctor from this year. But have you seen a drop in quality? Have you seen a
Um,
drop in
I would
social
say
interaction or anything?
during COVID, the nursing students that were coming out were not, because they weren't getting that in the hospital time. They weren't
Mm-mm.
getting, and it was so weird. It was either, okay, we're going to either stop producing nurses or they're going to have to come out like this. And that was rough. Those nurses, I felt like half of my job was counseling them, like these young nurses that were just coming in my office, bawling their eyes out because they were not prepared for this at all, at all. They
Mm-hmm.
went from being in class to taking their boards to now we're throwing you into a hospital. Guess what? You're a nurse. And orientation, that's funny because it was,
It
you
was
had so
constant
many
triage.
patients, right? Constant. So I would
So
say
that,
definitely with the nurses, I saw coping
and I think
mechanisms were hard.
that's understandable, right? It's just like, okay, here's your D-Day. Here's your version of D-Day. Just good luck. Here's a gun.
Yeah,
Go.
it was
So,
exactly that. It was like taking 18-year-olds, putting them on, saying you're going to war, sticking them on a plane and dropping them out of the plane. That is exactly the way, great analogy. That's exactly the way it was for those nurses.
did they make it for the most part? Did they stay in the field?
I have followed, so at the time I had what we called star RNs, and I was over a star RN program, and I have followed some of them. They've made it, but a lot of them have transitioned to other things.
Stayed in healthcare, but not bedside.
Correct.
Okay. And then
Correct.
are we seeing a decline still in healthcare? Do you know from the academia side of things? Are we seeing
So
it
yes,
up to?
there's a huge nursing shortage. Huge. There's a huge nursing shortage. There's a huge physician assistant, nurse practitioner shortage, and a huge physician shortage. And it's going to get worse. And I also just gave a talk on this a couple of months ago. It's multifactorial. You don't have enough spots at the universities. And the reason you don't have enough spots is you don't have enough instructors. Because I looked into teaching because I was a teacher. I thought,
Hmm.
oh, how natural to go back. I can't afford to be a teacher at
Hmm.
these high. Like I cannot afford to go back to academia and make a half of what I would be making. It's
Hmm.
just they've not made it lucrative for these instructors. So then a lot of the instructors you have are really old. I won't say that,
Hmm.
are maybe nurses that are at the end of their career that are like,
Hmm.
okay, this is what I want to do on a downswing. And that's really not what you need. You need people
Hmm.
that are relevant, that are doing things now, that are working now in the hospital. Then you also have this whole movement where nurses have to at least have a 4-year degree to be bedside.
Yep.
I will
Is
take
that a
the
big,
bait
is that
on
a
this.
huge
I
block?
realize I work for a hospital that's an academic hospital and magnet certified. In order to get your magnet certification, your nurses have to be highly trained. But I was a level trauma ICU nurse. At the end of the day, I want my nurses to be good nurses. And if they understand the leadership structure and all of that, I- it does not matter to me. So I'm a little bit on the micro side where I feel like we need these nurses to be good nurses and trained as good nurses and not to be academic scholars. If
Mhm.
they want to go on and get their advanced certification as a critical care nurse, as a certified oncology nurse, as that's different to me because that's okay. You picked a specialty and now you're going to learn about that specialty and everything in it. So yes, that. But I'm one of the few people who are like, yeah, I think this is part of the problem is that hospitals are requiring nurses to have a 4-year degree.
When I think about, we understand that from the trades perspective. We understand that we need welders, plumbers, electricians, and we're willing to put trade schools together and they don't have to, and those are very dangerous careers themselves. There's a lot of lives at stake, including their own, when they do these jobs. And they don't imagine if you added a 4-year degree on somebody that likes to do those types of work. Sometimes they're not classroom type people. They're very much, I want to work with my hands and do the thing. And to your point, I would see the similarity in nursing. I want to be a doer.
And then it's pay structure. There's so many nurses. That's why I've actually encouraged my daughter who just got her business degree. She's going back to school to be a nurse. At the end of the day, if you have a nursing degree or a healthcare degree, you can do anything with it. It makes you so marketable and not just within a hospital, which is what's dangerous for a hospital because we're losing our nurses to insurance,
To other options.
all these other options out there. We are losing our nurses because we're not paying them just as an entire entity. I'm not talking one hospital because they pay $2 more an hour. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking
Mhm.
across the board. They're not being paid enough, which is why you saw all those nurses go take travel contracts.
Yeah, oh, yeah, they were making so much money. They were
Which
keeping the
was not
Airbnbs
sustainable.
afloat.
It was
Right.
not sustainable for any hospital or business to continue that. But you saw that, okay, when this is how, I can make this amount of money.
Yeah. Who wouldn't, right? Go
Yeah.
live somewhere else for a little bit. So back to Miss Lisa. So I cannot believe you've only been in Arizona 3 years. That blows my mind because now what is your official position with, explain ACH, I'm sorry, A Healthcare Executives,
Oh,
that Arizona
ACHE,
Healthcare.
Arizona
Yes.
Healthcare, American College of Healthcare Executives.
Thank you.
So what that is, it's the highest level of certification that you can get. So you don't necessarily have to be clinical. So you think COOs, CEOs, CMOs, it's basically executive leadership in healthcare, not even necessarily a hospital, but within the healthcare entity.
Mhm.
So it's a certification that you take. You have to take classes, coursework, and then you have to take the Board of Governors exam, and then you have to upkeep every year.
Okay. And so what is your position with them
So
officially?
I'm VP of programming. So for our chapter here in Arizona, I'm in charge of creating all of those educational events that people attend to get credit and keep up their CMEs.
Okay, and tell us if we have, obviously Phoenix is our target market here. If you're
Mhm.
anywhere in the near the healthcare space, who comes to it? What is it? How is it involved? Why should somebody care?
It's number one, it's a great think tank. I interact with people from all hospitals from all over the valley, healthcare from all over the valley, but it's not just what you think. It's not just, oh, a physical therapist coming who wants to grow his career. We have economic developers, we have real estate. It's anyone and everybody who could be involved in healthcare, from the building to the marketing to clinical, that get together. It's fantastic networking. And then you also do, like, one of the topics that we just held was government policy in healthcare. And that affects
Hmm.
everyone. That affects you and your industry. That affects me and mine. And I had people come, and what we do is we do panel discussions. And one of the gentlemen that came and spoke, he was like, he's a lobbyist and he's on Capitol Hill like all of the time, although he's also an ER physician. And it's just, okay, what does this mean? Because a lot of people don't understand, like, all of the big, beautiful bill and all this rolling down. Help us unpack this. What does it mean? And then, okay, what can I do to change things?
So one of the things too I like to pull out of these conversations is especially as it relates to like the real estate world, there's a pretty big gap in information sharing because generationally when people were in their early 20s was when the GFC happened. So the bottom fell out of real estate and fell out of a lot of things, but a lot of people left our industry. So in our industry, you see this really seasoned crowd, this really green crowd, and the conduit to usually connect those conversations, lessons learned is lacking for that reason and some others. But if you were to, and one of the things that I think is the most powerful message that we're trying to be the conduit for is look at your story in itself. You had all these different learned experiences that you had no idea was preparing you for the next, but it was in some odd way. Like the small hospital was teaching you business, right? Then the business was teaching you institution. And then so all these different things kept falling into place and you just kept pivoting, whether it was linear or not linear. You just kept pivoting. And obviously life stuff happens and everything happens that are in none of our control. But when you look back at that and you would see a younger version of you, I'm sure there were times in that process that you thought, what the hell am I doing? Am I just lost? Am I going to take this leap? That really scary moment and what you did and how you took it and how you were brave enough to take it and why you would do it again.
I would say the scariest was packing up my car and driving me and my daughter, who was in 10th grade, from South Carolina to Arizona, a state that I
Mhm.
had never been to, that I knew no one here. I literally was reinventing my life. But to your
Oof.
point, to pivot, and it's like I was in my 40s, and I'm like, look, at the end of the day, success is very important. But at the end of the day, I learned from losing my husband and my father within 2 months of each other. Life is short. It's very short. And you've got to live life and you have to enjoy it. And it's not all about the bigger house. And I remember thinking right when I walked in to quit my job before I had a job and when I had enough. And I remember thinking to myself, they could double my salary and I would still say no. Because
Hmm.
what good is a big boat if I can never set foot on it? To say, oh, my kids are out on it and having fun, but I never get to enjoy it because I'm working all the time. So that's when I was like, nope, I am going to enjoy my life and I'm going to work and make a difference. Now, do I feel like I make a difference every day when I look at spreadsheets? Heck no. I have to remind myself, but it really is important. So when you pivot, make sure what you're pivoting. Are you pivoting just because you want to make an extra, oh, at this job, I'll make an extra 50 grand or, what is the ramifications of you pivoting? And I remember sitting back and thinking, if I don't take this leap, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Like I always think, what if?
Mm.
Like, nope, I'm going to try. And my daughter's advice was the best. She was in 10th grade and she had never gone to high school because of COVID. She was like, you know what, mom, let's move. And I have 2 more years of
Oh.
high school. And if I hate it, we can do anything for 2 years. And that was such a perspective. I'm like, I can do anything for 2 years, but I got to
And
try.
your 10th grader teaches you that. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
The brilliance that comes out of those
Yes.
little minds with nothing to lose.
Yeah.
That's
That's what she said.
awesome.
We have nothing to lose. Let's try it for 2 years. So here we are.
Little road warrior.
Yes.
That's awesome, Lisa. What's next for you? Do you know, or are you just going with it?
Oh, I ask the Lord that every day, Stephanie. I don't, everybody asks that. Honestly, I get asked that by my leadership. Lisa, what is it that you want? And
Yeah.
it sounds so cliche. I used to be able to say, oh, I want a C-suite job. And that's what I was pecking away. And that's why I'm doing this. And that's why I'm involved in, and that's why I got my fellow and ACHE and all this. But honestly, I want to be happy. And being happy is multifactorial. Being happy is making, feeling like I'm a success at work, like I'm making a difference. I want to be secure. I want to feel like I'm giving my children some type of security. So, of course, that's financial, but it's not in a title. And to be honest with you, I have enough letters behind my name. I've gotten to that point where I was like, because I actually thought, oh, I'm going to go back and get my Juris Doctorate. And that's what I'm going to do. And I was like, why? Where is this drive coming from where I feel like I always have to have something more, get more letters behind my name, be always on this forward inertia. And now I really want to start giving back, which is why I'm coaching. Honestly, I love that part of my day more than anything. If I have a client on my schedule for that day, I'm like, oh, I love it. It actually fills
It's
my heart.
filling your cup. That's awesome. I'm so happy. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap?
Words of wisdom? No. Oh, how about if I tell you, this is always a thing when you sit around when you go to any of those conventions or you sit around any of those think tank or team buildings, I would say, what's the best advice you've ever gotten? So mine is I was working when I was in the ICU, I was picking up shifts because I was always working extra and a geriatric psych- psychiatric unit. So this is geriatric psychiatric inpatient.
Sounds entertaining.
And I was having a day. I was like, this one patient was she was wearing me down. I was like, you think like someone makes you snap? She was about ready to make me snap this patient. And the director of the unit at the time was this little tiny blonde. She was like this whirlwind. They called her Crazy Kathy because she was always all over the place. She knew her stuff. Business wise, one was brilliant. So she comes through the unit and she sees me and she looks at me and she says, Lisa, are you letting crazy make you crazy? Because that shit's crazy. And I was like, oh my gosh. It was that was life-changing advice for me because I can't tell you how many times, Stephanie, that I will sit back and be like, Lisa, are you letting
Crazy,
you
make you
crazy?
crazy.
Because then that
So it's funny that I love that question. I'm gonna steal it from you. And I just reflected on mine. It's always one that hits you first is probably the right answer, even if it's not like brilliant.
yeah,
Mine was I remember calling my dad and I said, I was thinking about, I was putting stress on myself for how I was setting up my retirement or financial planning for the kids. There was some big thing that was scaring me. And I remember whatever it was I was tied in a knot about, I go, Dad, I just don't know what to do. I don't know if I'm doing enough. I'm scared. If something happens to me, what do they have? And a single mom. So this is it. It's all I have to give him is whatever this thing is. And my dad just looks at me. He goes, Stephanie, you're good at making money. Just focus on making money. So his answer was just make more.
yeah,
So I get tied in a knot. I'm like, just make more money. Just do what you love is the point is what he's saying. And stop fretting the small stuff and just do what you
yeah.
love. Very cute. Lisa, I appreciate you and your time. And I will say every year that you're in Arizona, we lose the Carolina accent a little bit more. So we've got to work on that. We got to
It
keep it going
turns on and
south.
off. It'll come out in very odd times. So yeah,
Love you lots, lady. Thank you
love
for
you too.
sharing. Okay.
Absolutely. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in today. I hope the conversation was inspiring for you. I hope you got a few laughs out of it and learned a thing or two. Please subscribe and love you. See you next time. Navigating the streets, y'all. I'm a mom.